Welcome along to Betting Weekly Extra Time European Edition. You're with Dan Roebuck alongside me, as per usual, Steve Wyss and James Eastham. Steve, very good day to you. AFCON is dominating the betting chat, not just in the Premier League, but also across Europe as well. How do you go about it? Do you ignore it? Is it game by game? Do you think that we over-egg it? Something they asked the Premier League boys yesterday. You know, we're always looking for angles here, but sometimes you think, well, there's only one player missing from this game. Do I really need to take it into consideration? What do you think? How are you?
Good morning to you both. Yeah, ultimately, I think it's something we've got to consider heavily because certain teams are affected more than others, like Sunderland, for example, in the Premier League. We know that. The other thing I will say is that teams will, though, also have been prepared for this down the line. They'd have known that these players are going away. It's not like injuries or suspensions that crop up. But I think certainly, if we look at the leagues, I mean, the French league is on a cup round now. Their problems come in the new year. There's a lot leaving the French league. And then, you know, the leagues that we're covering today, it's not as bad, is it? About, 20 players in each league? Certain teams are affected more than others. I think you've got to, as always, just check the individual case-by-case basis.
And, James, unlike England, a lot of these leagues take a little bit of a winter break. I mean, you mentioned it already on the show, but I mean, in terms of the French top flight, yes, there's lots of players heading to Morocco for AFCON, but there are fewer games that they're going to miss because of the scheduling and the fact that the league is only 18 teams rather than 20.
That's right. We have the French Cup this weekend, which is why it won't be featuring on our show. And then they don't play again until the new year. And by then, AFCON will be 10, 12 days into it. So, yeah, they may not be affected. And Steve's made a really good point there about taking it on a case-by-case basis, because there's lots of headlines about how many players are leaving the French league. Around 50 have gone to Morocco for the tournament. If you dig into the figures a little bit more, some teams are really affected and some teams aren't actually that affected at all. So by my reckoning, teams such as Paris FC are going to lose maybe 50% of their ideal outfield 11, but almost half of the division, again, it's opinion this rather than fact, but 8 out of 18 teams, from what I can see, are only going to lose one starting player. That is a player who would start if everybody were fit. So you do need to dig into it. There's lots of squad players going to the tournament from League One. How much difference will that make if they only miss one or maybe two league games and they wouldn't have started anyway? It's debatable. So totally agree with Steve. You've got to take it on a case-by-case basis and don't worry too much about the big headline figures at the moment about how many players have left a particular league.
Yeah, we think it's about 50 Liga, although there are various different reports suggesting it might be 51. 21 Serie A players, 18 Bundesliga players, 16 from La Liga. And James makes a good point there, Steve, about, you know, you can see teams that have got, 5, 6, 7, 8 going or whatever, but only maybe one or two are starters. And then it's the drop-off between, as Will White talks about, you know, if you've got one player that's key, who comes in after him, or if one player is not particularly key and his replacement is of the same level, then it might not matter so much. So there are lots of things to take in consideration.
There really is. And like I said, by case-by-case basis, then you're into the process of rating players. And some will have a higher opinion of players than the other. So that's the way I look at it. But it must be unsettling in some cases, surely, because some of these players will be big characters in the dressing room as well. And you can miss something, can't you, when these players are away that we can't even factor in, that we wouldn't even know about, perhaps, off the field. So if we get some certain teams who are just suddenly not looking at it, as we say, then it's a nice excuse for them, isn't it? But it could be a legitimate reason as well.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And also off the back of it, it's well worth bettors just taking note of any players that they think are significant to their club sides, whether they pick up injuries. Sangare, of course, of Nottingham Forest, the previous AFCON, unfortunately contracted malaria, and it really snookered him for his Forest season when he came back, and he really struggled. I think we're only seeing the best of him now, in fairness, and now he's going to go back to AFCON having just notched a couple of assists and a goals for Forest. So look, individual basis, player by player, keep note of the injuries. No doubt it will feature on our live shows because it starts, of course, on Sunday. So I guess there's games on Monday, Steve. You're on duty on Monday for the live show. So are you going to be taking an interest in AFCON from a betting point of view?
Yes, definitely. I always have done in the past, and I will be again. It's the time of year where there's not as much going on compared to normal, although we do now have Champions League in January. But it's always been a fascinating competition for me, AFCON. A lot of unders, tight games, and storylines as well. But good and bad down the years. So if it's on Betting Weekly Live, it will be covered on the day. And let's see, we've got a wide range of handicappers on the show. I'm sure we want to get stuck in.
Yeah, I've just remembered actually, James. Weren't you out there for the last one in Africa?
Yeah,
but not at the nation that was staging it.
Yeah, correct. So I was there, but it's listen, it's always great to be in a country that are taking part in big tournaments, isn't it? And I was in Morocco in 2019. I don't recall where it was hosted. It wasn't Morocco then, but yeah, atmosphere in the bars over there is exactly like what we're used to in the UK during the Euros. It's a huge tournament for so many nations. And I think the betting trends are fascinating on the tournament. We know that it is an unders tournament generally. Be very interesting to see the prices around that. And I think it was the last tournament where actually in the group stage, the underdogs in all of the games did pretty well. They didn't always win, but they sometimes beat the handicap line they were handed. So loads of trends to look out for. There are some obviously big teams who are expecting to go deep, but it's generally quite a tight tournament in terms of score lines game by game during the group phase, certainly.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I'll have to dust off all the stats that I've done for the last two, actually. You've just reminded me. Yeah, both teams to score no, I think has been profitable the last sort of maybe 3 or 4 renewals. I'll check them out and post them at some stage, no doubt. Right, let's get into some picks and plays, shall we, for the weekend action. No French top flight football until the new year, as James has pointed out, but we've got Italy and Spain and Germany to focus on. Last round of German games. We're going to start in Italy. A big game of the weekend. Juventus against Roma. This is 2:45 on Saturday. Juve are plus 102. Roma are plus 290 here. Just 4 points separate the two teams. Roma 4th and Juventus in 5th here. Juve around about even money. James, should they be? You've got one you on this.
I don't think they should be, Dan. No, I think they're a bit too short, plus 102 to win the game. Roma are massive underdogs here. They're plus 290 to get all 3 points. And the draw is plus 220. So I'm putting 1 unit on Roma here on the Asian handicap with a plus 0.25 goal start. That's available at plus 108. So with that play, you will make a profit if Roma avoid defeat. There are other things you may want to look at, like Roma double chance. So you'd have the draw and the Roma win on your side completely, or Roma tie no bet for a bigger price on back in Roma. It's all about the price really for me here, Dan. I think that Juventus there at plus 102, that's the market's way of saying effectively they've got a 50% chance of winning the game. I just don't really think their form or their results this season would back that up. They are below Roma in the table at the moment. They're 4 points below them. They've got a poorer goal difference than Roma. I think Roma are undervalued here, and it's something I've mentioned on the show before about Roma. I think they've looked a little bit more comfortable playing away from home than playing at home this season. It seems to suit the way that they've set up under Gasperini. It's going to be a tough match. I mean, it's going to be a close game. I certainly don't think Roma are going to win it convincingly or anything like that. So it's a tight one. But for me, as I say, it's about the price. I think Juventus's chances of winning it are overrated, and Roma have got a better chance than the market suggests. The one concern I've got about Roma is they have lost 5 out of 15 so far, so they can be beaten. They're winning games and losing games, and that's the wins are getting them up the table. But they have lost 5 out of 15 now. Only 2 of those defeats away from home, where, as I say, I think they've looked fairly comfortable. So yeah, listen, Juventus are a tricky team to read. We've seen almost 2 or 3 incarnations of them already this season. Obviously, with a change of manager there, we've seen a slight change of style. They're not, for me, particularly consistent from one week to the next, and that can be a gamble because it means we don't quite know what they're going to produce. They could produce a big game here. They could produce a big performance, but I think Juventus, as they've played this season, are equally likely to not turn up. So they're a tough read, but the top line for me on the game is that Juventus at plus 102, a 50% chance of winning it is just overrating them really based on what they've produced so far. So it's a 1-unit play on Roma for me. As I say, there's various ways you can side with them if you like them. I'm backing them on the Asian handicap with a quarter goal start.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Roma have struggled against the best sides. I completely see where you're coming from here. I actually quite like Juve to win this, but I wouldn't back them at that sort of price. And we're all price driven here on this show, as all bettors should be. And you could certainly make a good case, as James had, for that plus quarter. You've got the draw on side as well, which I think is key. Steve, just brief thoughts if we're putting this one as the sort of game of the weekend. I know you've got no betting slant, i.e. no leans or units on this one, but any thoughts on this?
Well, Juventus are, I think, really difficult to get right at the minute. I feel like there's a great deal of potential in them, and I've been knocking on the overs route a lot, but then they go and win 1-0 last week. And yeah, look, they're kind of in unbettable territory for me. They're very watchable, don't get me wrong. But, I mean, the interesting stat there, you mentioned the draw. Roma have yet to have a draw this season in Serie A. It's incredible. 15 games, 10 wins, 5 defeats. And that's the reason why they're fourth. I said before, actually, if you don't draw games, you tend to do quite well. If you win or lose, as long as you're winning enough, you do quite well. And but they are due one, and this could be the draw, perhaps. I wouldn't be backing Juventus at nearly minus money. So in this instance, I think I can totally understand why James has gone with the plus 0.25 Asian line on a team that generally doesn't concede many goals.
1 unit for James on that one. Juventus against Roma. We like Roma quarter ball start on the Asian line. Let's get to some picks in Germany from Steve, who's put his betting boots on ahead of Christmas here for the 2 plays we've got in Germany, because the units are coming out left, right and centre, Mr. Wyss. We're going to talk about Wolfsburg against Freiburg first and foremost here. Wolfsburg are plus 145, Freiburg plus 175. They sacked Paul Simonis recently. Daniel Bauer has come in, 4 games in temporary charge. And they've won back-to-back games, last 2 for the first time in almost a year. Not been given the job permanently. He might be if he can get over Freiburg. Almost each of 2. The hosts, the favourites. Where's the money going here, Steve?
Well, do you know, last week I actually think I got away with it a bit in terms of it was a losing week for me on the channel here, but it could have been a lot worse. And the original staking system, I think I'd have lost a lot, you know. We'll never quite know, will we? But I got away with it, and I feel like I've almost got a new lease of life. So the new staking system we've got, we can bring it into to our advantage now, where I can put 1.5 units on a couple of German picks. And the first of these is going to be in the Wolfsburg game, like you say, against Freiburg here. Over 2.75 goals at plus 102. I mentioned Wolfsburg at the start of the season could be a team to watch out for. And they kind of proved me right, but in the wrong way early on, didn't they? They were, in the relegation zone, really struggling. It didn't work out for Paul Simonis for whatever reason, the former Go Ahead Eagles coach, who did really well with them. But the squad, it surprised me because the squad just looked quite good. And I think, Daniel Bauer's come in, hasn't he? And interim coach. And he's done the job for them. He's got them firing, a couple of 3-1 wins. They've looked miles better, really. Confidence is up. So that in itself means that Wolfsburg on my radar. I like the goals because Freiburg, they're generally more of an over team. They're hard to judge because they've had to juggle so many games domestically and in Europe that I think there's been a couple of really flat performances where they just haven't been able to play at their best. But they've had a whole week off now, and I think we're going to see a couple of fresh teams here. In the Wolfsburg case, a really confident team. Freiburg are comfortably mid-table, aren't they, as well at the moment? So I think we should get a shootout. And the goal line's low. I honestly thought this goal line would be at 3. There's nothing wrong with those who just want to take the flat over 2.5 goals. We can get even more juice out of this, getting plus money on over 2.75. And I say 1.5 units. That is to sort of demonstrate my confidence in both the play, but also the value in the line. So really like this match for goals. There's another one as well soon. Wolfsburg versus Freiburg over 2.75. Official 1.5 unit pick at plus 102.
Yeah, I think this is a really good play. Wolfsburg, the most profitable over 3.5 side in the Bundesliga this season at plus 504. The other Bundesliga game that you like is Stuttgart against Hoffenheim. which is 9:30 Saturday Eastern as well. Both of these games are. This is 6th versus 5th. Steve, Stuttgart minus money. Both teams profitable for goals. What line do we have to go to here? And this is another big play from you.
Yeah, I mean, the goal line is higher here, and we've got to go over 3.25 goals on the Asian line, minus 113. Another 1.5 unit official play. But this goal line is high for a reason. If you just look at the results of both teams, especially Stuttgart, it's been a wild ride of late. I mentioned last week, another one I got away with, didn't I? That late kickoff ended 4-0. To Stuttgart, and that demonstrates the mighty power that they've got. To win 4-0 away from home after they'd just played in the Europa League is incredible. So they're flying, they're in good form. Dennis Undov's looking good up front, and overall, I think this is the sort of match. I mean, Hoffenheim have banged that drum all season, haven't I, about their goal scoring potential, and they've lived up to it. Confident team, 5th in the table. You look at, there's no any reason to back the unders in this game, is there? Both on terms of how the performances should go, the logical aspect of it, and then the line as well. If the line was at 3.75 or 4, you could say, okay, maybe I could even understand why some might go just an auto play on the under, but we've got a line here at 3.25. I'm pretty confident this will go over 3.5, over 4.5. So for those listening who like to play bigger lines, then do it. But, for the sake of the official pick, over 3.25 on the Asian line, 1.5 units, minus 113. I think there's a bare minimum. We get a half loss, but I'm really confident this will cover entirely.
Yeah, 2 big plays when it comes to goals. We go 3.25 line for that Stuttgart-Hoffenheim game. And obviously 2.75 for the Wolfsburg Freiburg fixture. Those are the 2 German plays. Last round, of course, of German fixtures before they resume in the new year. Let's get some Italian plays from the boys once again. We've got one from James and one from Steve coming up here. We've got 2 from James, in fact. But we're going to start with Sassuolo Torino and James's thoughts on this one. This is 9 a.m. on Sunday in Serie A. Sassuolo plus 132, Torino plus 230 draw. Plus 205, Fabio Grosso, Sassuolo, enjoying life back in the top flight and scoring goals, James.
Yeah, they are scoring goals, and I'm backing this to be a high-scoring affair. My 1 unit play on the game is over 2.5 goals, which is available at a good plus money price of plus 120. We've talked regularly on the show about the fact that Serie A has been fairly low-scoring this season. That's been the trend in many games. But if you pick your teams correctly, you can find these nice big prices on overs. And this is one of the games where it's not only how the 2 teams have played, but also the stats bear out that it could well go overs. And I was a bit surprised, actually, to find plus 120 on over 2.5 goals. I thought it might be a little bit closer to even. So on those stats, both of these sides, Sassuolo and Torino, have played 15 times this season. 9 games for each team have had over 2.5 goals. So you're looking at 60% there of all the games that they've played. Then if you look at the relevant home fixtures and away fixtures, so Sassuolo at home, Torino away from home, it's 4 out of 7 in both cases going over 2.5 goals as well. So that's 57%. So you've got 60% of the games overall, and 57% of the relevant home and away games going over 2.5 goals so far. On the basis of those top line stats, you'd have to say that plus 120 on overs here is good value. It's obviously rating the chances of 3 goals or more as under 50%, and the stats say otherwise. And on Sassuolo, Dan, yeah, you're absolutely right. They do seem to be enjoying it, and I've been impressed actually by how bold they've been in some of their matches. They got that 2-2 draw away to Milan last weekend. They do look like a side to me who are going to give up chances, but they're willing to take some risks at the other end. And I think, after that result last weekend where they played some pretty good attacking football, I would expect them here to be fairly confident, because it's a game that is far more winnable. They're facing a Torino side who are 4 points below them in the table. I think they'll go all out to win it. And I think that will set the tone for how the game goes. And, Torino will see this as one of those mid-table matches where they can pick up points. So, if they were playing different sides, maybe we wouldn't focus as strongly on the stats. But I think it's a game that both teams will look at and think, do you know what, we can get something here. And I think with the stats to underpin it all, everything for me here points to overs being the value play. So it's a 1-unit pick from me. It's over 2.5 goals and it's available at plus 120.
Plus 120 big prices on an over 2.5 goal game involving Sassuolo, who have been flying at the moment. There weren't an overside in Serie B last season. Their profit and loss, it was just slightly a loss over the course of the season. But this campaign in Serie A, they have turned into an overs team. Torino have been one of those sides that we've got wrong a little bit here. Slightly concerned with that. But we're only looking for goals rather than anything else. And Ismail Kone has found 1 or 2 goals for Sassuolo recently. He was brought through at Montreal by Wilfried Nancy. Wonder where he is now. Wonder how he's getting on. I hope he's doing all right. That's Sassuolo against Torino. Let's move on to Fiorentina Udinese, which is midday on Sunday, and Steve's got a play on this one. Fiorentina are plus 112, Udinese are plus 255 here. Draw plus 220. When you put this one on the text, well, I thought, well, surely you're going to be fading La Viola here, still without a win in Serie A. I mean, it's just incredible. The way that things have gone for them, Steve. Paolo Vanoli, I think he's under pressure already. Speaking of Wilfried Nancy, I know Nancy's only been there for 4 games and he looks like he might get sacked. Vanoli's been there for 8. I think he's on the brink as well. Are we fading Fiorentina? Are we going for Udinese on the Asian line? I can't believe Fiorentina favourites here. What's the play?
Go the same bet as last week, Dan. Over 2.25 Asian goals at minus 105. If we actually look at the fixtures of Fiorentina, then this lack of a win is really hindering them badly. And I think it's putting a lot of pressure on them in terms of, look at last week's match against Verona, for example. They equalised. They should have taken the lead, but they were really going for it. They were taking more risks than perhaps they should have done. And they in the end, got a sucker punch at the death, and Verona have beaten them. And that sums up the position they're in, Fiorentina. Unless they nick like a 1-0 win, they're always going to have to be taking risks now more than they want to do. And we know they've only kept 2 clean sheets all season against Pisa and Torino. This team doesn't seem to be able to keep clean sheets. So Udinese, I think this music to their ears. A very difficult side to predict, aren't they, Udinese? You just don't know what you're going to get with them. But they've got to be a bit annoyed, actually, that they're the clear underdog in this game. Like, would you back Fiorentina at plus 110?
No chance.
No, exactly. And Udinese players look at odds, and I think they'll feel like they're a little bit disrespected here. So I think they'll be bang up for it. They do have goals in them. It's very random. 1 week you get an over, 1 week you get an under with Udinese, don't you? So they were under last week, so maybe it's an over this week for them. Fiorentina let us down in midweek, didn't they, James? But 9 changes they made in the Conference League, and I think that just shows that this is where the focus is on. It has to focus on the Serie A. They've got to get this win. And like I said, they don't look like getting like a 1-0 win. So I like the goals again. 2.25 Asian line, minus 105. Half loss if there's 2 goals exactly. But whether Fiorentina win or not, I don't know. You wouldn't put money on them, like I said. But I think there can be at least a bare minimum of 2 goals in the game, hopefully more.
You just made a good point, and we were talking about it off air as well before we came to record, about teams making wholesale changes for the Conference League. Crystal Palace, of course, did it, and you guys talked about it on the live show. Just wonder, Steve, that bettors have got to think, what were the lineups, and this is not just the leagues that we cover, but the rest of them. What were the lineups in midweek in that Thursday competition? Because I think the likes of Fiorentina and Crystal Palace are saying, well, okay, we might not make the top 8. But we'll get a relatively straightforward draw anyway because of the quality of the competition. And they just didn't go for that top 8 place, which seemed incredible.
Well, yeah, I just think in their case, they have to prioritise Serie A at the moment. They can't afford to go down. And I think teams will look at the conference and think, maybe if we don't finish in the top 8, it doesn't matter because we're still going to go through whatever. There's fixture congestion and stuff, but it's like cross that bridge when we get to it. This is an official 1-unit play, by the way. Just to actually confirm here, it is, say, 1-unit official, over 2.25 goals, minus 105.
James, your thoughts on that one? on the sort of Conference League conundrum?
It's tricky, isn't it? Because obviously we were doing the live show 2 or 3 hours before the lineups were announced. We felt that the teams who were just outside the top 8 in the Conference League were going to go for it, especially if they had a winnable fixture, which Crystal Palace did. Didn't turn out that way. So lineups were surprising in some cases, not all cases. We thought Crystal Palace would rotate, but teams like Fiorentina, who've done so well in that competition and had a fairly winnable fixture last night. Lausanne are a tough side to face, but they could have won it. They didn't really seem that bothered, did they? And that was what was revealing and interesting, and you have to take that into account. It's partly what put me off backing against Fiorentina today, because I think the price of plus 112 on Fiorentina is way too short. But when I saw how little interest they seem to have in winning in the Conference League, I thought, well, do you know what? They are definitely up for this league game this weekend, not just in terms of team news, but the players have had it made clear to them what the priority is. So it's very interesting. I then put myself in the shoes of the Fiorentina manager, and, you know, with hindsight, you would say, do you know what? Yes, you would take, wouldn't you, any qualification in the Conference League and focus on Serie A, because it's not too early to be worried about relegation if you are Fiorentina. Yeah, if you haven't won, we may be only halfway through the season, but there'll be panic stations there. So, yeah, Steve's absolutely right. They're obviously prioritising this competition, and it shows how important team news is when you're moving from the midweek round of games in Europe to the games in the league at the weekend.
Yeah, there is a very different shift. And what you've just said there about Vanoli thinks, well, we threw anyway. We qualified. I'm not going to go out of the competition. And if we want to know one of the reasons why Fiorentina, who've not won a league game this season, are short at plus 112 as they are, that maybe is the overriding factor in the price. Genoa Atalanta next for us, 2:45 on Sunday, main game in Italy, and we've got a unit from James and Steve in this one. Atalanta are minus money favourites, Genoa are plus 310 here, and we've got the trend that everybody has profited from who follows the show over the course of the last few weeks, apart from the man who identified it in the first place, James.
Yes, and that would be me.
I mean, you have put a lean up. You have put a couple of leans up, you know.
I have put a couple of leans on, but yeah, it's one of those trends that you spot it and you think, let's wait and see if this trend continues. And by the time you've worked out it does, you've missed your chance. So the trend, just to recap for anybody that didn't see it, was on the clear change of style at Genoa after they changed manager. They got rid of Patrick Vieira. They brought in Daniele De Rossi. Straight away, their games were more open. They were playing more attacking football, and they were taking more chances at their back. And what it's resulted in is more goals in Genoa matches. So if you go back 4 or 5 games, you were able to get over 1.75 goals at around evens, which was unbelievable value given the change of style. I did put that up as a lean, but not a full unit play. And that trend has continued. Genoa have continued to play really positive attacking football. They're trying to play their way out of trouble, and they are making mistakes at the back, and they are taking chances at the back. But unlike Patrick Vieira, his predecessor, Daniele De Rossi seems happy with that. So what we've had is a stack of games at Genoa since De Rossi took over that have gone over 2.5 goals. It's 5 out of 5, which takes them up to 10 out of 15 for the season. Happened again last weekend. They lost 2-1 at home to Inter. Now, the other factor is the price has obviously changed because the market has reacted to this and the line has moved on goals in Genoa games. So it's like, should you get involved now that the price has changed? Has it corrected to the point where it's about right? You can argue maybe, but I'm willing to back it this weekend. So it's a 1 unit play for me on over 2.5 goals in the Genoa Atalanta game, which is available at plus 104. I still think that's a decent price, you know, given what they're doing under De Rossi. This clear stylistic change should continue, and I think this is an ideal game actually to go overs because Genoa at home are going to go for it. You know, they are 16th in the table. They still have ground to make up. I think the players are quite happy under De Rossi, but you know they're not out of trouble or anything like that. So they will go for it, and they're playing an Atalanta side who I think they will see as beatable. Atalanta have obviously had their own struggles this season. They're down at 12th in the table at the moment, and they're only 5 points above Genoa. So Genoa will play the way they have been playing for me under De Rossi. Really positive performance, and I think we'll see similar from Atalanta because they'll see it as winnable as well. And, you know, the season-long stats on Atalanta as regards high-scoring games aren't as strong, but their last 4 in all competitions have had overs. And there's a little bit of recent history we should maybe flag up between the two teams because Atalanta beat Genoa 4-0 in the Coppa Italia earlier this month. Might be another reason why I think Genoa will play the way De Rossi likes a little bit more than usual and go strongly for the win. So Like I say, people who followed this trend over the last month, they will have seen the price has changed. It has adapted. The market has noticed that Genoa games are now higher scoring, but I'm still willing to back it. So it's 1 unit from me. It's on over 2.5 goals. And at the moment, as we're recording, it is available at a plus money price of plus 104.
Brilliant stuff. Over 2.5 every single game since De Rossi has come in, has gone overs. That's 6 in total, 5 in Serie A, for a profit of plus 868 to level stakes. Steve, variation on a theme for you, but you have got one underscore line on your side with your 1 unit play.
Yeah, both teams score yes for me. Official one unit play at minus 113. I just hope we're not too late to the party here, because the last few weeks James has nailed it with Genoa. We didn't even mention their fixture last week, and that went over against Inter. But there's been a clear change of style and the new manager, and every game's gone over like James has said. There's also been a change of manager at Atalanta, of course. Rafael Palladino has come in, and he's always going to be naturally more attack-minded than Ivan Juric, and who I think restricted the players. They've been involved in some higher scoring contests of late for their last 5 games over 2.5 goals. I wanted to get on Genoa, both teams score over now, because the next 2 fixtures I think are not as attractive in that market. They've got Pisa and Roma, and those matches may well actually be unders based on the opponent. So I wanted to get on now. I also did want to get that 1-1 draw on my side. I absolutely hope I'm wrong here. I hope it goes well over. But I've seen it before where you back the overs and then suddenly there's a random 1-1 draw where there's lots of missed chances. So I did want to get that on my side as well. But I totally agree with James. I think we see plenty of goals here. Don't know who's going to win it. Probably Atalanta. Maybe the extra quality might make the difference. But I think at bare minimum we're seeing 1-1 draw, 2-1, 3-1 either way.
Both teams score yes since De Rossi took over in Serie A, plus 635, incidentally, for level stakes for 1 unit. So if you've been playing those 2 markets, you have been absolutely cashing left, right, and centre. Long may that continue, or at least this weekend. That's Italy done and dusted with. Incidentally, we're going to have a full Serie A preview of the games just post-Christmas for our next show. I'll remind you about that at the end of the programme. We've got some leans in Spain to deal with, though. Before we wrap things up, we're first of all, James, going to talk about Real Madrid here, who are at home against Sevilla. This is 3 p.m. on Sunday. Both teams in action in the Copa del Rey. Not straightforward for Real Madrid, although they did get through. They didn't cover the handicap line. For Sevilla, one of the few teams involved in an all-top-flight clash, they were knocked out. What's the thinking here? Where are we going for a lean on Real Madrid?
It's a lean on the props market here, Dan, and it's one that we did earlier in the season when Real Madrid played Barcelona, and it's on overshots for Real Madrid, team-specific overshots, not in the match in general, just team-specific on Real Madrid. And the lean specifically is over 18.5 shots from Real Madrid in the game, which is available at minus 137. So, yeah, just to clear up, this is about attempts on goal. It's not shots on target. Shot on target market is one I like, specifically with players. This is about how many attempts on goal generally Real Madrid have in the game. And I'm going for over 18.5, which is available at minus 137. For all the ups and downs that Real Madrid have already had this season, and, Xabi Alonso's been under pressure in the last couple of weeks, which I don't personally agree with. I think it's far too soon to be talking about that on the back of maybe 1 or 2 poor performances. But one of the trends on Real Madrid, especially at home, has been they do fire in attempts on goal from all sorts of positions, all sorts of angles, open play and set pieces. And I think that will be the case this weekend against a very beatable Sevilla team who defensively haven't looked great, and the stats on Sevilla conceding attempts on goal in games aren't great as well. So it's a chance, I think, for Real Madrid to continue this trend of firing in shots whenever they get the opportunity. It's something they do even when they take the lead in games. In my view, it's not that they would then back off if they're 1-0 or maybe even 2-0 ahead. I think they'll continue to play in the same way. So just to give you the stats on it, Real Madrid have played 7 home matches this season. This play of over 18.5 attempts on goal would have paid out in 4. of those 7 home games. They're currently averaging more than 20 attempts on goal per home match. So it's just a lean from me. I didn't want to put a full unit on it because partly Real Madrid's patchy form. They also haven't had that many home matches recently. They've had more away games. So I just wanted to maybe back off a little bit and see how they fare here. But the stats are fairly strong on it. So if you are looking for a play on the big 2 in Spain this weekend, I didn't really fancy anything in the main markets, but I think this lean is one that can be underpinned by the stats. So it's over 18.5 shots. It's team specific, just Real Madrid against Sevilla, and it's available at minus 137.
Yeah, and Sevilla are the other interesting thing there, because they can get involved in a bit of chaos, as we've sort of trailed all season long. And just looking at some of their games against Barcelona and Atleti, sort of in the similar sort of ballpark in terms of expected goals on target, goals against on target, 2.2 and 3.3 against Barcelona and Atleti respectively, which are some very big numbers, and it just means that, you know, Real Madrid most likely to have quite a few shots in that one. Let's hope that is the case.
I think Real Madrid will win that easily, by the way.
Capital.
Dan, personally.
Do you?
Yeah, I think Sevilla. We must mention.
I was a little bit. I was disappointed with Sevilla in midweek. I thought they would do better in the Copa. And they got
I think they are missing Akor Adams and Chidi Ajuke to the African Cup of Nations, and Adams has not scored a massive amount of goals this season, but he's found a bit of form of late. And the last time that Sevilla travelled to Madrid, they got well beaten by Atletico 3-0. That could have been more. And I think Real Madrid, quite a lot of people are down on Real Madrid at the minute, of course. This Asian handicap line of -2 might put a lot of people off, but I actually think they cover it. This is the sort, I think 3-0, 4-0 Real Madrid here. I'm not sure that Sevilla will actually score in the game. You can bet your bottom dollar there'll be loads of corners now after they've let me down the corners market the last 2 matches. But I'm off that Sevilla train for corners. They beat Oviedo 4-0, but Oviedo are awful. They are truly, truly awful. So this is a much bigger step up in class for Sevilla.
Barcelona at Villarreal, incidentally, on Sunday. The Real Madrid-Barcelona double has only won twice in the last 6 match days, but maybe this is one for those that like the double to get back on track. Couple of leans here from Steve to finish the show with. First of all, Osasuna against Alaves, which is 12:30 on Saturday. I thought that Osasuna and that win against Huesca, who are a decent Segunda side, was impressive. Won 4-2 away from home. But similar form for Alaves as well here. So I sort of like Osasuna. Whenever they play at home, we talked about the home record quite a lot over the last sort of couple of years on the show. But Alaves not in the worst order here. I'm torn because I like Osasuna at home. They have served me well this season. Steve, what do you like?
I do like Osasuna to win the game. So the lean is on the money line at +125. Listen, if you're going to put a sizable stake on the game, then you would go draw no bet or -1/4 of a goal. But this is why I've gone with the lean, because it is more of a sort of, not a pizza money play, but it's more of a smaller sort of lean. And so that home record, they know they have to get results at home. There's several sides in top leagues in Europe who are just a lot better at home than away, aren't they? Look at the Premier League, like Leeds and Brentford are good examples of that. And Osasuna fall into this category in La Liga: 4 wins at home, 1 draw, 2 defeats. So, this is an opportunity against an Alaves side who, we know they don't concede that many chances and goals, but they have lost 5 of the last 7. I know there have been some tougher teams in that, but they lost at Girona, for example. They lost at Vallecano 1-0. And this is the sort of game I feel like it could be again. The reason I'm put off with any official picks in La Liga this week is that midweek Copa del Rey. There's teams that have played extra time. That's what happened to Osasuna. They had to win 4-2 after extra time. And I know there was plenty of rotation amongst the teams, but that always puts me off. It's just a red flag. So that's why it's got to be on the lean category for me. But I think Osasuna find a way to win this game because Alaves just struggle in front of goal, don't they?
And one last game to look at, that is Elche against Rayo. Both teams having decent seasons, Steve. Both in decent form at the minute. I might go against you here. So give us your lean first up.
I think Elche on the money line here are worth considering at plus 148. It's similar to the Osasuna game. Again, if you were going to stake a significant amount on Elche, then I would probably more recommend draw no bet or minus a quarter of a goal. But draw no bet's minus 148. You can get plus 148 here on the money line, and I think it's a bit bigger than it should be. They beat Girona 3-0 in their last home game. Prior to that, they nearly beat Real Madrid. They nearly beat Real Sociedad. That was 2-2 and 1-1. The problem I've got with Rayo Vallecano, there's two problems I've got with them, right? Number one, they don't score enough goals. They have blanked in 5 of their last 6 La Liga fixtures. Now, that's a problem. They miss too many opportunities. They're the biggest underachieving side in La Liga in front of goal. And, you know, I've constantly said, they'll turn that around. But maybe, just maybe, we need to look at their personnel on the field and think they haven't got the players to put these chances away. And if it keeps happening, this is going to keep biting them on the ass. So I like Elche here. I also think Rayo their schedule has really been a struggle. They've constantly had to juggle the conference games with La Liga. And I know some of the opponents in the conference have been easy. They easily beat Drita 3-0 on Thursday. But these games add up. You know, they've already played 6 games in December. This is their 7th game in December. And I don't care who it's against. It's just constant pressure on the squad, turning it around. And I think we could get a flat performance from Rayo Vallecano here, if I'm being honest with you. So that's why Elche do catch my eye on the money line here. I say flat performances. They've probably had a couple anyway. They lost 4-0 at Villarreal at the turn of November, and they lost at Espanyol a couple of weeks ago, 1-0. So, I like Elche here. Money line, lean at plus 148. Have I done enough to convince you against Rayo Vallecano?
Well, I mean, this massive recency bias from me, because I backed Betis quarter ball start and they were lucky to get 0-0 with Rayo. And I've looked at some of the sort of underlying numbers for Rayo recently. They have won the XG battle in 1, 2, 3, 4 of their last 5 games, but haven't won any of them. This is in La Liga. So I think they might be undervalued. However, having just looked at some of the team news as you've been going through your explanation of an Elche play, I have noticed that Andre Rachu is suspended and he is first choice defender for Rayo. Website suggesting that De Frutos is going to be out as well, and he's pretty much first choice. And Pathé Ciss is away on AFCON duty with Senegal, and he started 10 games, I think, this season. So that might be a factor. So it might be no bet for me. I
know you're a metrics man, Dan. That's the thing. I know you are a metrics man, and we all are to some extent, aren't we? But I think it gets to a certain stage where we look at a team and think, hold on, why are they underachieving either defensively or offensively?
Sure.
And after a certain amount of time, it's not always just bad luck, is it? It's just they're not good enough, perhaps. It's a weird way of saying it, isn't it? But then they rock up and win 4-0 somewhere, and we're like, oh, it was always going to go back to the mean, wasn't it? So.
Yeah. Look, there are teams like that in every single league, and you're absolutely right. Some just don't perform to what their numbers suggest that they should do. And, you know, you've got to get with that. And Sevilla's a good example of that, because we've always been talking about their style of play and the chaos that they create, but all the numbers would suggest unders, and that's how the bookmakers were pricing it up. It didn't happen that way. Thankfully, we cashed on that. Yeah, I might just row back from that, Rayo. We'll see how we go. That game is 12:30 on Sunday. Steve, James, thanks for your company. Good luck to one and all. We will keep everyone updated via our X feeds. That is a wrap for Betting Weekly Extra Time European Edition. Follow us at Because We Win and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Get your picks in on the chat. We will be back early next week. We're going to be recording ahead of Christmas with James. Every game on the Serie A slate. That's the news.
It is, yeah, and I think we did the same last year, so a festive treat if you are a Serie A fan. We'll be covering all the matches, a bit like what the Premier League show does every week, isn't it? And looking forward to it very much.
Is that easier, Steve? Just to concentrate on the one league?
Yeah, it absolutely is. You know, I'm sure, like James,
teed you up now.
It
should be easy.
I will be following Serie A in even more detail this weekend. By the way, it's only about a half round of card, isn't it? 6 teams, 6 matches in action because of the Super Cup. Some of the fixtures are going to be in mid-January for round 16. But yeah, full round of action, 27th to 29th. We'll be covering every game. We'll have some good picks, hopefully. to bring you some winners and some viewing over Christmas.
Brilliant stuff. That's your lot for today, though. From all of us, it is goodbye.